Hello, friends, and welcome to this interesting webinar on practical tips to practice asset allocation. So, friends, we all have been hearing about benefits of asset allocation for quite some time now. But practicing asset allocation is easier said than done. So, to help us understand the nitty-gritty of asset allocation, today we have with us Suresh Soni, CEO, Baroda BNP Paribas Mutual Fund. Suresh is an industry veteran with over 25 years of experience in investment and business management industry. So without wasting a single minute, let me welcome Suresh. Good evening, Suresh, and thanks a lot for your time.
Good evening, Nishant. Great to be talking to you and through you to the distribution partners as well.
So friends, I must say that today we got an opportunity to learn from Suresh's wisdom. So all right, I'll start this webinar with a fund house specific question. So Suresh, it's been close to 8 months of Baroda and BNP Paribas MF merger. So what are the changes that you have implemented to make the fund house a household name in the industry?
Sure. Nishant, first change is, of course, to be talking to you and talking to our distribution partners through you. But more importantly, this merger is a reset point for us. So compared to the two businesses that individual asset management companies had, now we are a much larger, much stronger fund house. So both in terms of our assets under management, our reach, our depth of investment and team capabilities, as well as product range, we have increased substantially. The two partners that make us, which is Bank of Baroda, which is among the leading nationalized bank with good understanding of retail and large network and trusted brand. And then you have BNP Paribas Asset Management, which is a top tier asset manager globally. So these two is a very interesting combination, and that puts us in a very good step or very good space to build this business strong. So as we grow, as we look at our platform right now, in terms of number of products, we are now around 28 products across equity, fixed income, and hybrid, which is almost twice of what we used to have in the earlier individual fund houses. Our investment team size has more than doubled. We are investing aggressively again in terms of expanding our reach, as well as engaging with the distribution partners. So we are building this business indeed for scale, for future, and investing aggressively to build it and hope to grow with our partners.
सुरेश, अगर आपको 3 कंपनी की प्रायोरिटीज बतानी हो तो कौन कौन सी होंगी वो?
देखिए, ऐसा है कि हम लोग सर्विस इंडस्ट्री में हैं, तो एक ही तरीका होता है ग्रो करने का सर्विस इंडस्ट्री में, इज टू डिलीवर वैल्यू टू योर क्लाइंट्स. एंड फॉर अस द क्लाइंट्स मीन बोथ द एंड इन्वेस्टर एज वेल एज आवर डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन पार्टनर्स. सो पूरा फोकस जो होगा हमारा कंपनी का would be towards delivering that. So be it in terms of the investment management capability, the investment team, both in terms of skills as well as the science behind it. Second, रीच एंड एंगेजमेंट. बहुत जरूरी है कि पार्टनर्स के पास में हम पहुंचे, हमारे प्रोडक्ट्स के बारे में उनको जानकारी दें, उनके साथ एंगेज करें, उनके साथ में कुछ म्यूचुअल डेवलपमेंट का काम करें. और तीसरा ऑफ कोर्स ये है कि कम्युनिकेशन हैज टू बी क्लियर, देयर हैज टू बी शार्प फोकस ऑन सर्विस डिलीवरी. सो दीज आर द की टेनेट्स दैट वी हैव टू हैव. तो अगर ग्रो करना है इस इंडस्ट्री के अंदर और अगर कुछ रॉबस्ट बिजनेस बनाना है तो ऑब्वियसली इट हैज टू बी वैल्यू टू क्लाइंट. That has to come.
Great. So Suresh, my next question is about asset allocation. So as I've already mentioned that we all have been hearing about asset allocation and its importance for years, but it is easier said than done to practice asset allocation. So can you share 3 practical tips to practice the asset allocation?
You're very right, Nishant. ये कहना आसान है कि asset allocation करो, but इसको practice करना बड़ा मुश्किल है. अब देखिए, इसके लिए एक बड़ा सिंपल तरीका है कि हर आदमी जानता है कि भाई लॉन्ग टर्म रिटर्न इक्विटी इन्वेस्टमेंट में आता है, बट इक्विटी मार्केट में सरवाइव करने के लिए व्हाट यू नीड इज व्हाट आई विल कॉल बाइफोकल विजन. बाइफोकल विजन मतलब एक तो आपका एक आंख आपकी लॉन्ग टर्म पे होनी चाहिए कि लॉन्ग टर्म पोटेंशियल इक्विटी का अच्छा है, तो फिर मुझे वहां इन्वेस्ट करके रुकना है. बट यू ऑल्सो हैव टू सर्वाइव द शॉर्ट टर्म, यू ऑल्सो हैव टू सर्वाइव द वॉलेटिलिटी. You can't separate the rose from the throne. तो आपको लॉन्ग टर्म रिटर्न मिलेगा, लेकिन आपको शॉर्ट टर्म में यू डोंट हैव टू बर्न आउट. क्योंकि अगर आपको ट्रेन से गलत टाइम पे उतरना पड़ गया तो आपकी कंपाउंडिंग वगैरह सब यहीं रह जाएगी। तो इसको शुरू करने का बड़ा सिंपल तरीका है मेरे हिसाब से, और जो मेरे साथ में मेरे एडवाइजर्स ने पिछली बार बैठ के किया था, कि आप सबसे पहले ये डिटरमाइन करिए कि शॉर्ट टर्म रिक्वायरमेंट क्या है, और उसके लिए कॉर्पस अलग से बना करके आप उसको सेफ एसेट्स में डाल दीजिए। तो उससे उसको क्लाइंट के साथ अग्री करिए, उनको ठीक से आप ऑब्जेक्टिव अग्री करिए कि ये पूल जो है ये हम लोग कभी भी विथड्रॉ कर सकते हैं, एंड देन उसके बाद जो बचा पैसा है that you are free to invest for a longer time horizon, and therefore let the magic of compounding play. So पहले आप डिटरमाइन करिए कि शॉर्ट टर्म के लिए क्या जरूरतें हैं, उसके लिए अलग से आप कॉर्पस बनाइए, और लॉन्ग टर्म का फिर बाद में आप उसी हिसाब से एक्सपेक्टेशन मैनेजमेंट करिए। वॉलेटिलिटी से आप थोड़ा सा उनको जरा बताइए कि भाई वॉलेटिलिटी होती है, लेकिन एट द सेम टाइम वी हैव गॉट एनफ मनी अवेलेबल टू अस फॉर शॉर्ट टर्म, and therefore this corpus that we are allocating is purely for long term. अगर आप वो allocation नहीं करते हैं, then there is a possibility that somebody will get off the train at the wrong time, और वो compounding वगैरह नहीं हो पाएगी, और फिर वहीं पे फिर client experience also goes for a toss. दूसरा ये है कि हमारी इंडस्ट्री ने काफी इंटरेस्टिंग प्रोडक्ट बनाए हैं, एंड आई एम श्योर सारे एमएफडी उससे अवेयर हैं, which come with a range of hybrid funds, and वो जो है वो इंडस्ट्री का सेगमेंट वो काफी अच्छा ग्रो भी कर रहा है, और वहां पे काफी अच्छे ऑप्शंस भी हैं जो कि आप अपने इन्वेस्टर्स को दिखा सकते हैं।
जैसे आपने बोला बकेटेड अप्रोच लेना है हमें, कि कोई भी आपका अमाउंट है हर महीने का, तो उसमें हम लोग बकेट बना दिए कि कुछ शॉर्ट, कुछ मीडियम, कुछ लॉन्ग टर्म। लेकिन जैसे कि कोई अपॉर्चुनिटी आती है, जैसे कभी ज्यादातर एडवाइजर्स कोशिश करते हैं, जैसे मार्केट कभी डाउन हो गया तो लोग कोशिश करते हैं कि ज्यादातर लमसम पैसा आता है तो ज्यादातर इक्विटी में डाल देते हैं। तो आपके हिसाब से ये स्ट्रैटेजी कैसा है? इसमें भी एसेट एलोकेशन करना चाहिए कि टैक्टिकल एलोकेशन करना चाहिए उनको? आपके हिसाब से क्या है?
नहीं, बिल्कुल सही बोला आपने। सी हम लोगों को इन्वेस्टर्स के पास में बहुत बार ये हो जाता है कि हम लोग प्रोडक्ट्स देते हैं उनको, इस या तो क्लाइंट की फाइनेंशियल सिचुएशन में कोई चेंज है, या फिर क्लाइंट्स की ऑब्जेक्टिव्स या फाइनेंशियल सिचुएशन में चेंज है, एक तो वो हुआ, और दूसरा मार्केट में कोई बड़ा डिसलोकेशन है। तो मेरे ख्याल से जैसे काफी सारे अगर एडवाइजर्स ने रिव्यू किया था कोविड के टाइम पे और क्लाइंट का पैसा इक्विटी में डलाया था, तो आई थिंक दैट इज अ वेरी गुड स्ट्रेटेजी, बिकॉज दैट अलाउज द क्लाइंट टू बेनिफिट फ्रॉम बाइंग एट अ टाइम व्हेन देयर इज अ गुड अपॉर्चुनिटी अवेलेबल। तो ये दोनों कॉम्बिनेशन है, एक तरफ आप कैलेंडराइज रिव्यू करते हैं ओवर अ सर्टेन पीरियड ऑफ टाइम, और दूसरा दो में से कोई एक इवेंट होती है जहाँ पे कि क्लाइंट का ऑब्जेक्टिव चेंज हुआ है या सिचुएशन चेंज हुई है, या फिर मार्केट में कोई बड़ा डिसलोकेशन हो गया है, तब आप रिव्यू करिए।
अच्छा, ग्रेट। So Suresh, what are the three most important factors in asset allocation that every MFD should keep in mind?
तो यही है कि क्लाइंट की रिस्क टॉलरेंस या टाइम होराइजन वो सबसे इंपॉर्टेंस होता है, और दूसरा उसकी शॉर्ट टर्म फंडिंग रिक्वायरमेंट। ये तीन फैक्टर आप समझ लीजिएगा। तो अगर हम इसको आइडेंटिफाई कर पाए और उसके लिए अगर हमने एडिक्वेट प्रोविजन कर दिया है, तो उसके बाद का काम आसान हो जाता
है। अच्छा, and what are the most important benefits of asset allocation according to you?
तो देखिए, एसेट एलोकेशन करने के लिए एक और चीज पहले हमें ध्यान में रखनी चाहिए कि एसेट एलोकेशन तभी होता है सही मायने में जब आप पैसा अनकोरिलेटेड एसेट्स में डालते हैं। अगर आपने एक क्लाइंट के पोर्टफोलियो में 3 स्मॉल कैप फंड डाल दिए तो ये एसेट एलोकेशन नहीं हुआ, क्योंकि ऑल ऑफ देम विल राइज एंड फॉल टुगेदर।
राइट।
तो एसेट एलोकेशन का सबसे बड़ा प्रिंसिपल ये है कि यू हैव टू क्रिएट अ पोर्टफोलियो ऑफ अनकोरिलेटेड एसेट क्लासेस। तो वो सबसे पहले एक बार आप आइडेंटिफाई करें, और उसके बाद में फिर क्लाइंट का पोर्टफोलियो उसके अंदर में डालना चालू करें।
अच्छा, तो जैसे कि सुरेश, जैसे कई बार मार्केट में जैसे हम लोग बोलते हैं कि कभी इक्विटी अच्छा होगा तो डेट नहीं परफॉर्म करते, और कभी डेट अच्छा करता है तो इक्विटी, लेकिन कुछ दिनों से हम लोग देख रहे हैं कि सब एक साथ ही चल रहे हैं। तो ऐसे में हम लोग कैसे एसेट एलोकेशन कर सकते हैं?
देखिए, हर क्वार्टर या हर महीने तो आप इसको चेंज नहीं कर पाते, पर
जी।
ओवरऑल
हम्म।
मार्केट की लीडरशिप चेंज होती रहती है। तो आप देखिएगा कि अगर मैं पिछले 20 साल की बात करूं, तो 20 साल में करीब करीब 10 या 11 साल ऐसे थे जहां पे कि इक्विटी ने हाईएस्ट रिटर्न दिया।
हम्म।
2 साल ऐसे थे जहां पे कि इक्विटी ने रिटर्न नहीं दिया और फिक्स इनकम ने रिटर्न दिया। और करीब
हम्म।
करीब 6 से 8 साल ऐसे थे जहां पे कि गोल्ड ने इक्विटी से बेटर रिटर्न दिया और फिक्स इनकम सबसे भी बेटर रिटर्न दिया। तो हम जैसे बीच बीच में कुछ डेटा एनालाइज कर रहे थे इक्विटी, गोल्ड और फिक्स्ड इनकम का, तो बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग सा हमें वो ट्रेंड दिखा कि gold tended to outperform almost about 35-40% of the time there, and equity did about 55% of the time, and fixed income about 5-10%. तो ये लीडरशिप जो है वो साल दर साल चेंज होती रहेगी। आप हर साल अपना एलोकेशन वैसे चेंज नहीं कर सकते। आई थिंक इट इज बेटर टू थिंक अबाउट सम प्रोडक्ट विच कैन कंबाइन दिस।
हम्म।
सो आज की तारीख में आप बैलेंस एडवांटेज फंड देख सकते हैं या हाइब्रिड इक्विटी देखते हैं विच spread their money into equity and fixed income. There's also another product that you can think about, जो कि multi-asset होता है, which puts money into equity, fixed income and gold.
अच्छा, तो सुरेश मेरे को ऐसे 4 एसेट क्लास बताइए जिसमें आप खुद अपना इन्वेस्टमेंट डाइवर्सिफाई करना चाहेंगे एसेट एलोकेशन के लिए।
देखिए, equity is certainly the asset class that produces the highest return over a long period of time. And all of us can handle some part of volatility. So equity
हम्म।
is definitely the prime asset class that you should keep from a longer term perspective. Having
हम्म।
said that, you can't put all your money there, nor do I.
राइट।
So I put some part of my money into fixed income, and some of that goes into the situations like NPS, or
हम्म।
earlier, of course, government used to allow voluntary contribution to provident fund, which is what I used to do earlier. Now that becomes taxable. And in
हम्म।
addition to that, debt funds. So fixed income allocation goes into some of the government oriented as well as some of the debt funds. Equity allocation is the other one. Third, that all of us need to have, and I don't necessarily consider it to be an asset class, it's more a something that you use, which is real estate, at
हम्म।
least property, which gives you peace of mind, your own
हम्म।
house.
हम्म।
Uh, People come with argument on that also, कि it is better to rent rather than to buy a
हम्म।
house, but I do believe that it comes with its own share of peace of mind, and it is better to have your own house. So that's
हम्म।
the third asset class. And the fourth is gold.
हम्म।
Because gold is the only international asset class that you can own currently when there is still a cap on, let's say, overseas investment that you can make. So gold or international equity, I'll put in the same bucket.
So Suresh, one interesting question that I want to ask you is that how often should MFDs review the asset allocation, and what are the circumstances should it lead to the changes?
तो जैसा मैंने पहले आपको बोला था कि दो चीजें हैं। एक तो आपको कुछ एनुअल फ्रीक्वेंसी डिफाइन कर दे, कुछ फ्रीक्वेंसी डिफाइन कर देनी चाहिए, और ये आपके ऊपर है या आपकी मतलब अंडरस्टैंडिंग के ऊपर है, बिकॉज यू नो योर क्लाइंट्स द बेस्ट। सो इट कुड बी एनुअल और इट कुड बी एनी अदर फ्रीक्वेंसी। दैट इज सम सॉर्ट ऑफ अ डिसिप्लिन, बिकॉज हम लोग कभी प्रोडक्ट बेचते हैं या कभी कुछ प्रोडक्ट क्लाइंट लेता है, तो उसके बाद में हमें ओवरऑल व्यू नहीं मालूम पड़ता कि उसका ओवरऑल पोर्टफोलियो कैसा है। तो अगर हम इसको एक कैलेंडराइज इवेंट कर दें, तो कम से कम हमें एक ओवरऑल पोर्टफोलियो व्यू मिलता है। और
अच्छा।
दूसरा ट्रिगर, एज आई सेड, इज बेस्ड ऑन द सर्टेन इवेंट। वन इज क्लाइंट लेड, उनकी सिचुएशन में चेंज, उनके कोई गोल्स में चेंज, और सेकंड द डिसलोकेशन इन द मार्केट लेड। सो एक तो कैलेंडराइज तरीका हो गया इसको करने का कि आप कोई भी टाइम होराइजन ले लीजिए, वंस अ ईयर, वंस इन 18 months और वंस इन 2-3 years, व्हाटएवर यू थिंक इज अप्रोप्रिएट, उस पे करिए। और दूसरा, ऑन सर्टेन ट्रिगर इवेंट्स, देन यू शुड रिव्यू इट।
तो फिर भी आइडली मतलब साल में एक दो की 2 साल में एक, व्हाट इज योर व्यू ऑन दैट?
I think lesser than 1 year frequency is probably futile and will lead to unnecessary changes.
अच्छा।
So anywhere between 1 to 3 year, depending upon the comfort of advisor and client, to my mind, should work for most people.
Great. Great. So Suresh, so BNP, Baroda BNP Paribas Mutual Fund has also launched Baroda BNP Paribas Multi-Asset Fund. So what's the rationale and why do you think that the fund has a unique proposition?
तो देखिए निशांत, इसमें क्या है कि हम लोगों के पास में ऑलरेडी, और हमारे एडवाइजर से फैमिलियर होंगे, हमारे पास में वेल परफॉर्मिंग हाइब्रिड इक्विटी और बैलेंस एडवांटेज फंड है, एंड काफी सारे MFDs ने उसमें पार्टिसिपेट भी किया है. What we wanted to do, and we had done some data earlier where we were looking at multi-asset category and impact of including gold into a portfolio of equity and fixed income. So multi-asset में क्या है, हम लोग equity fixed income के अलावा gold भी ऐड करते हैं. एंड जब हम लोग डेटा देख रहे थे तो बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग ऑब्जर्वेशन हमें लगा कि पिछले 20 साल में अगर मैं देखता हूं तो इक्विटी का रिटर्न अगर निफ्टी 500 देखता हूं तो 17% CAGR है, वेरी इंप्रेसिव, वेरी हाई रिटर्न. बट ऑफ कोर्स इट कम्स विद इट्स ऑन वॉलेटिलिटी. जैसे आप 2008 देखेंगे तो मार्केट 55-60% करीब नीचे आ गया था. सिमिलरली कोविड टाइम पे इट वाज डाउन 40%. फिक्स्ड इनकम जो है वो एक स्टडी एसेट क्लास है, वो करीब 7-7.5% का रिटर्न देती है. बट गोल्ड कम समवेयर इन बिटवीन, वेयर अगर आप देखेंगे पिछले 12 साल का गोल्ड का रिटर्न जो है वो करीब 11-11.5% के आसपास है CAGR, which is substantially better than fixed income. And one very interesting thing about gold जो हम लोगों ने ऑब्जर्व करी वो ये है कि gold has a negative correlation to equity in terms of the performance. तो आपको याद हो अगर 2020 में कोविड हुआ था, इक्विटी मार्केट फेल बाय अराउंड 38%, निफ्टी फेल बाय 38%. ड्यूरिंग दैट पीरियड गोल्ड एक्चुअली वेंट अप. Ditto happened in 2008 when equity fell by about 55-60%, gold went up around 30%. Similarly, taper tantrum or any other major market dislocation event, gold tends to do well. And so ये गोल्ड का दो एट्रीब्यूट है therefore कि एक तो रिटर्न अच्छा है अपने आप में, फिक्स्ड इनकम से 11% के आसपास इज अ वेरी गुड रिटर्न, एंड इट इज नेगेटिवली कोरिलेटेड टू इक्विटी. सो जब आप ये तीनों एसेट क्लासेस को कंबाइन करते हैं तो यू आर एसेंशियली एबल टू गेट अ वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग पे ऑफ मैट्रिक्स जहां पे कि रिटर्न्स आर improving without substantially raising the risk profile of the portfolio.
Sure. So Suresh, I would like to take some questions which has been coming from audience. Mr. Datta wants to understand that how fixed income portion would be managed in multi-asset fund.
Fixed income दत्ता यहाँ पे हम लोग largely accrual strategy चलाएंगे with a maturity of about 3 to 5 years. So currently, if you look at the credit growth and rate hike by RBI, now the rates are looking fairly attractive. So you can get 3 to 5 year corporate bonds at somewhere between 7.75 to around 8.25 kind of level, which is where the portfolio will be largely invested.
Okay, and what would be the credit quality of the papers?
Credit quality will be AA and above. And in addition to fixed income papers, we would also look at selectively at InvITs and REITs as well.
Okay. Okay, Suresh, so Sachin wants to understand why gold is part of this asset allocation. I mean, why gold is the part of multi-asset?
Sure, Sachin. Thank you for the questions. Gold. So Sachin, gold ऐसा है कि, as I was explaining earlier, gold has negative correlation to equities. As I demonstrated earlier, at a time when equity is not performing, we have seen that some of those extreme volatility events, gold tends to perform. Plus, it has got a very decent return over a medium to long term. So last 20 years, as I said, is 11.5%. So it has those two attributes: one, decent return profile, and also negative correlation to equity, which is very interesting. And therefore, usko add karne se portfolio mein the return actually improves, and without volatility increasing in any meaningful manner. So it leads to better risk-adjusted outcome for investors. So which is why these three asset classes. And again, as I said earlier, portfolio diversification theory, as well as, to practice it, you need to have uncorrelated asset classes in the portfolio, which is where gold comes in.
Okay. And Suresh, Varsha wants to understand that what would be the ideal allocation that fund will have in gold?
So Varsha, gold, equity and fixed income, these are three buckets that we have. Equity, we will allocate between 65 to 70%.
Hello, am I
Yes.
audible? Okay, okay.
Nishant. Yeah.
So you were frozen for a while to me. So I guess there is some instability in the internet. So one anonymous attendee wants to understand about REITs and InvITs. So what are the benefits of holding REITs and InvITs in multi-asset format, and will it going to be listed or unlisted? So it is listed, but can you throw some light on REITs and InvITs, Suresh?
Sure. So REITs and InvITs are relatively new asset class as far as India is concerned. Currently, there are 3 listed REITs and 3 listed InvITs which are available. We will see this asset class expanding in coming year. Normally, return-wise, REITs and InvITs globally deliver you about 200 basis point over the sovereign yields. So जैसे हमारा 10 year आज की तारीख में 730, 740 है. The return expectation from REIT and InvIT should be somewhere between 9.5 to 10.5%. These are relatively stable asset yield generating assets. So REITs के अंदर में आपको rental में yield मिलती है और InvIT में आपको infrastructure assets से को return मिलता है by toll collection or by way of annuity from government. So that's the basic way in which it functions. This is of course slightly riskier than fixed income because here you have to have your cash flow comes from assets rather than underlying credit. But it's a very interesting asset class. And we think it has a lot of potential in India.
Okay. So Suresh, one question that I would like to ask you, that there are a few multi-asset funds in the market with a good track record. So in such a scenario, why should MFDs shortlist your multi-asset funds for their clients?
Sure, निशांत. देखिए दो चीजें हैं. पहले तो आई थिंक मल्टी एसेट एज अ कैटेगरी जो है वो बहुत अंडर ओन्ड है इंडिया में. अगर आप डायनेमिक एक्विटी फंड या बैलेंस एडवांटेज फंड और हाइब्रिड एक्विटी फंड कैटेगरी को देखते हैं तो उसमें हमारी करीब करीब 3.5 लाख करोड़ की इंडस्ट्री एसेट्स है.
Right.
Compared to that, the assets of multi-asset fund as a category itself is only 22,500.
अच्छा.
So multi-assets का category का size is smaller than the largest fund in balance advantage as well as it is smaller than hybrid equity fund.
Right.
So I would say that clients are very under allocated in this category. So kindly anyway consider increasing the allocation into the category. That's one. In case of our fund, what we have done is we have essentially gone on the path of relatively more predictable asset allocation because we have done a fair amount of extensive data crunch and we have figured out that the best asset allocation to our mind tends to be about 15% thereabout in gold, 65 to 70 in equity and balance into fixed income and inventory. Now what this does is, one, it gives you continued benefit of equity taxation, also growth from equity, and some amount of volatility hedge or extreme situation hedge by gold. And this becomes a very interesting portfolio from both return outcome as well as risk outcome, and also is a predictable portfolio. Also as a house, I'm sure you are aware that our hybrid equity as well as balance advantage fund have done well. They are backed by you. In fact, balance advantage really stands out in terms of strong performance that it has delivered. And therefore, this asset class again coming from us hopefully will see some merit and some attention from you.
So, Suresh, as we all know that every fund has a certain role in investors' life. For example, flexi cap long term के लिए आदमी use करता है, liquid fund emergency fund की तरह use करता है. So, where do you think that where do multi-asset funds fits into the client's portfolio?
The multi-asset fund is a core allocation. So it's a basically a solution by itself rather than just a single product. So, and what it does is by combining gold and fixed income, it reduces the volatility without compromising significantly to return because 65% is still going into equity. So it delivers you tax efficient return as well as it delivers you the growth of equity as with lesser volatility. It could be a core allocation for clients. I think this is a reasonably good packaged, simple solution where you are able to ride the tax advantage of an equity fund and at the same time achieve an allocation both into gold as well as fixed income. So outcome is relatively lesser volatility as well as good client experience.
Okay. So I'll take some audience questions again. So Kannad Mehta wants to understand that should he recommend lump sum investment in multi-asset funds at this juncture when the market is so much high, market levels are high. So what is your view?
So Kendra, the market is high is the very nature of the market. हम लोग का index 100 in 1979 से अभी 62,500 नहीं जाता अगर market was not touching a new high every now and then. So it is in the nature of the market to touch a new high because the earnings rises, corporate profitability rises, market will always go to a high. The question to ask is the market overvalued? And let's try to focus on that. I think that is what you're implying. So let me go to that. See, markets right now are trading at around 19 times the earning for FY24. Historically, we have tended to trade at around 18 and a half or thereabout, 18 to 18 and a half over the last 10-year average. तो उसके comparison में we are slightly expensive but not really outrageously expensive. अगर 18 साढ़े 18 नॉर्मल रहता है और अभी 19 के आसपास में प्राइस अर्निंग मल्टीपल है तो बहुत ज्यादा नहीं. And again, valuation is not an exact science. It's more a range. So मुझे नहीं लगता कि market कोई बहुत expensive है या you should be fearful. Also, हमारा market पिछले साल more than 1 year, I would say, has gone through a phase of consolidation. So while Nifty is at, or BSE Sensex is at all-time high, your mid-cap and small-cap indices are not at all-time high. They are still 8-10% below all-time high. So to that extent, and also given the fact that we are not very far off from averages, I don't think markets are extremely expensive. Indian market has shown resilience in a year where there's been a lot of negative development and FI selling. We have shown relative return with very low absolute return in the last 1 year. I think in the coming few years, we would probably be able to show good absolute return also after the phase of consolidation of last 12 to 18 months.
So Suresh, one of our participants wants to understand that how often you will rebalance the portfolio of the multi-asset fund.
So multi-asset fund from a portfolio perspective, as I said, our allocation is about 65 to 70 to equity. Gold will be about 15% and balance goes into fixed income and REIT and InvIT. And this is something that we would generally follow on an ongoing basis.
Okay. Okay. And Sachin wants to understand, so how will you allocate the equity portion in the fund? I mean, what kind of investment strategy you will opt?
So Sachin, the equity strategy is a multi-cap strategy. Our benchmark is Nifty 500 and therefore the portfolio allocation or construction will also be in a multi-cap manner. So large, mid, small, all will be a part of the portfolio.
Okay, so Mr. Datta wants to understand whether gold portion will be actively bought and sold. I mean, every month you will be buying the gold. So it's part of asset allocation, I think.
So gold is more coming from an asset allocation perspective rather than actively trading into gold. Our intent is to have more static allocation broadly of about 15% rather than every month buying and selling gold. We are not commodities trader, but at the same time, we understand the importance of this as an asset allocation in the portfolio, as well as its attribute of both decent return with, countering the volatility of extreme moves in the equity. And that is the purpose that we are trying to do, rather than trying to actively get in and get out at every month.
Okay. So Suresh, Prasanna wants to understand that how the fund has performed during the back testing over the past 10 years.
So it is actually done quite well. In fact, if I were to tell you, both in terms of the volatility as well as in terms of the return, the performance has been very satisfying. And this should be a part of our presentation that has been shared. But if I were to just pull out some data, see, one of the things that you observe, and we were trying to look at it from the investor's time horizon of 3-year rolling return for the last 20 years. So to share some data with you, if you invested purely in equity, Nifty 500 index, about 9 to 10% of the time, or let's say, about 7 to 8% of the time, you would have got negative return on a 3-year holding basis. However, by doing this strategy, your instances of negative return comes down to next to zero. And if you did a 65-35 conventional equity and fixed income, you would still have negative observation in about 3.5% cases. So one, observation of negative returns goes down, as well as in terms of the return to the client, it improves meaningfully over a typical equity hybrid strategy. So compared to pure equity hybrid strategy, this strategy delivers better returns with instances of negative returns coming down. Of course, the return of it being a multi-asset fund, the return will not be as high as pure equity investment, but at the same time, volatility and instances of negative returns are much lower. And overall experience-wise, clients would actually find it
Yeah, am I audible now?
Yes, you are very much audible now. I think we were frozen in between for a bit. Yeah.
Yes. So Suresh, Piali wants to understand that whether the fund will follow a flexi focused approach in terms of market capitalization for equity allocation,
Yes.
or it would be, yeah.
So Piali, this is the benchmark of this fund is Nifty 500. So we would indeed move between equity, large cap, mid cap, and small cap. But a larger portion, if you really look at the structure of Nifty 500, about 3/4 or about 70-75% of that tends to be in the large cap, and balance goes into the mid and small cap. So I would say a dominant allocation of the portfolio would be in large cap, but balance would certainly move between mid and small, depending upon our relative assessment. We are not index trackers, but we would have a slightly larger allocation to large cap and then balance into mid and small.
Okay, will you be considering taking exposure to international stocks?
In this fund, probably there are enough asset classes available to us between equity, fixed income, and gold. And just to be very clear, gold is indeed an international asset class. It is the purest form of international asset class. Right? So to that extent, international asset class is represented by gold.
Okay. So Suresh, so I would like to understand who should invest in multi-asset funds? Who are the ideal clients?
So this is actually a core asset allocation product and can work for anybody. I think most of us look for a balance in our portfolios. So, I mean, none of us would put 100% of our money into one single asset class. And to that extent, this fund with a well-balanced portfolio is a good portfolio choice for almost every client. It could work for the new investors as well as somebody who's seasoned enough and wants to have, let's say, the tax advantage of equity, and also makes an allocation to fixed income and gold for the balance. So I think it works for most clients. But please look at a horizon of 3 to 5 years rather than trying to look at it from a very short-term perspective.
Okay, so ideally investors should hold it for at least for 3 years, if not 5 years. Okay. And Suresh, one last question that I would like to ask, that why do you think that MFDs should recommend this fund to their clients?
So first of all, just to recap, I think we are, as an industry, significantly under-allocated in multi-asset products. Multi-asset product industry is only 22,000 crores, which is smaller than the largest fund in balance advantage or in equity hybrid category. So the entire category is smaller than a single fund. Whereas if you really look at it with a combination of equity, fixed income and gold, the return of this category tend to be better than pure allocation to equity and fixed income. And also gold acts as a good hedge against equity at the time of extreme volatility. So you are essentially able to achieve the two things: slightly better client experience in the period of drawdown, which is what has happened in past, and also improved return profile. So this is actually an impossible trinity that we try to achieve. But in this fund, indeed, at the extreme volatility points, gold acts as a good hedge. And also long-term return potential wise, gold has tended to be better than fixed income. So please consider it as a good asset allocation for clients. And again, I think we as a house do have well-performing products in the equity and fixed income combination in our hybrid fund categories. And this is a complementary product that we thought would be of interest to you and your clients.
Okay. Since we ran out of time, but I'll take two more questions from audience. So are you planning to invest in other commodity like silver along with gold?
No. See, silver tends to be an industrial commodity. Gold is a pure asset which has held its value and is liked by everybody from central bank to a housewife to kings and monarchs in past. So we are buying gold for its attribute of managing the volatility as well as guarding against the currency depreciation or geopolitical risk. And that role is played by gold, and silver does not play that role because silver is a lot more linked to the industrial cycle. It's an industrial commodity, whereas gold is a pure reserve currency kind of a or store of value.
Okay. So Suresh, you have already answered this question, but it is coming from many distributors. Can you help them with the asset allocation pattern again? I mean, what could be the percentage of gold in the portfolio, equity and fixed income, REIT and InvITs?
So equity is between 65 to 70%. So it's a typical equity hybrid fund that you see where 65 to 70% goes into equity. That's what it goes. And balance amount is split between what gets allocated to gold and fixed income. So equity 65 to 70%, gold about 15%, and balance about 20%, 15 to 20% goes between fixed income and InvITs and REITs.
Okay. So since 65% is equity, then taxation would be equity. So
absolutely. This has equity taxation, and also from a return profile perspective and as well as time horizon perspective, I would recommend people to think of it from a slightly longer term time horizon, given that equity is the predominant asset class.
Great. So with that, we have come to an end to this interesting session. Thank you so much, Suresh, for such an insightful session.
Thank you, Nishant. Pleasure talking to you, and through you to our partners. Look forward to more interaction in future.
Great. And finally, I thank each one of you for being such a wonderful audience. Stay in touch, friends. Goodbye.